Salutations and welcome, friends, to another episode of Amalfi Sports. I'm your host, Matthew DeSantis, and today we're going to be previewing the races for the final Saturday at Del Mar for this season. And it should be a great final weekend of racing. Obviously, we're going to continue to cover a lot of races out on the West Coast, most notably Santa Anita. So West Coast coverage is going to continue. I know some of you follow me on Twitter. Jim Martinez, in particular, likes to stay in tune with what I'm thinking for all these races. So West Coast, I'm going to keep plugging along as we move towards the Breeders' Cup. However, before we get into the races at Del Mar, I just want to let everyone know that in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see the new podcast, The Win Place Show, drop on your podcast platform of choice. And so be on the lookout for that. You're going to get all of these weekly previews on that podcast. You're also going to get interviews with prominent individuals from across the horse racing industry on the podcast. Coming up, I'm actually tomorrow going to be speaking with Farron Peterson, who's a very successful jockey here on the East Coast, who's originally actually from out in California. That interview will be here next week. So all of this is going to continue to be on YouTube. If you've been following us there, you can continue to get those videos there. But listen, podcasts are very convenient. Like I said before, you can listen to them on your way to work, on your way to the track, dropping kids off to school, where have you. So just trying to be more convenient. There will also be some podcast-only episodes in the future. Sometimes some race recaps. That's something we've not done a lot of, but I'd like to do more. And like I said, podcast is a better form for that. So if you want to follow horse racing, make sure to follow the Win Place Show in the next couple of weeks, and I'll have announcements for that for those of you who are followers. And very quickly, I just want to say thank you to all the followers. Our numbers on these previews have been growing every single week. I really appreciate it. I was out at the track at Colonial Downs on Tuesday of this past week, and thanks to always wearing this little cap, I'm tend to be somewhat recognizable. And a gentleman came up to me and introduced himself and said he and his wife were watching the preview before they came out to the racetrack. So it was really great to hear from fans. And also when I was up at Charlestown last week with Bree Mott from Stable Duel, she was wonderful to interact with up there, and a lot of great hospitality. And I also have to give a shout out to two guys who I met, Mark and Len from Philly. I hope they're doing okay with the big storms that just came through, but they were great supporters as well. So it's always great to get feedback from the fans. So if you see me out at your local track, come up, say hi. It's always great. Now, as I mentioned, I am on horse race Twitter, and so make sure to follow my handle at Fail to Menace. And we have a lot of great content. We'll have some giveaways coming up here, I think in particular at the Pennsylvania Derby, so you want to be on the lookout for that. And obviously, this is the final week at Del Mar, but it's not the only place that's having a final week. We're also going to have a final week at Saratoga, and I have picks and previews for there as well on Saturday, which is highlighted by the American Jockey Gold Cup. And you can find the coverage of that and all of our horse racing information on amalfimedia.com. Now, as always, make sure to like and comment with your thoughts on how you think the races are going to break down this weekend, and share with your fellow horse racing fanatics on social media. Okay, enough of all that. Let's get into and dive in and talk a little bit about the fields that we're going to see this Saturday at the two stakes races at Del Mar. And that's, of course, the John C. Mabee Stakes and then the Del Mar Derby. And let's take a look at the John C. Mabee Stakes first. This is the 9th race on the card. It is a 1 1/8 on the turf for 3-year-olds and up who are fillies and mares. And this is a 9-horse field. We're not going to go through all 9 in terms of in-depth analysis, but I am going to touch on quite a few, talk about what I like, what I don't like necessarily about some of them. But let's look at the post positions here. Coming in at post position 1, we have Maxim Rate, who is the morning line favorite, just barely, and trained by Simon Callahan, jockeyed by Juan Hernandez. Then in the number 2 hole, you have Quiet Secretary, trained by Ian Krulak and jockeyed by Abel Cedillo. In the number 3 hole, you have Dog Tag, who actually, I'm sorry, is the morning line favorite at 3-1, trained by Richard Mandela and jockeyed by Umberto Rispoli. In the number 4 hole, you have Nasty, trained by Richard Baltus and jockeyed by Ricardo Gonzalez. In 5, you have She's Our Charm, trained by Ronald McNally and jockeyed by Giovanni Franco. Then you have a horse I'm particularly intrigued by, Bodacita, trained by Richard Baltus and jockeyed by Kent DeSormo. In the 7 hole, you have Tapwater, trained by Richard Mandela, jockeyed by Joe Bravo, who's having a very nice meet out at Del Mar. And then in the number 8 hole, you have Going to Vegas, another horse trained by Richard Baltus. That's 3 in this race, and jockeyed by, of course, the incomparable Flavian Pratt. And then finally, you have Fast Jest Court, Brazilian horse that is jockeyed by Drayden Van Dyke and trained by Michael McCarthy. So that's the field for the John C. Mabee. And as I said, I don't want to necessarily go over all 9 horses. There are a couple of long shots that I think you can probably fade and toss. I just don't see them as being particularly live. I do think you have some value with kind of your middle shots, so to speak, those 6-1 horses that I'll talk a little bit more about. But let's start with Maxim Rate. Let's kind of work through post position. So Maxim Rate starting on the inside. It's interesting. This is a horse, very good horse. And more importantly, has had very strong graded stakes performances. Not all the horses in this field can say that, and has performed well at the graded stakes level. Not spectacularly, but has performed very well at the graded stakes level. And so Maxim Rate's a horse that, it's interesting. Last time out at the Yellow Ribbon Handicap, finished 3rd. Quite frankly, was just too far back. Was not placed properly. And so this time around, you have a 9-horse field. So again, there's the potential of being lost a little bit further back. But I think if this horse is placed more effectively, you can see a much better finish. Like I said, just was trying to make up too much ground too late. Just ran out of real estate. And I think also it just takes a lot out of the horse if you're placed that far back. You see decent workouts with Maxim Rate, so you like to see that. And additionally, the one thing I do like is that distance won't be an issue here. This is a horse that can go 1 1/8 miles, has done it before, and you like to see that track record. And particularly since there are some horses in this field that are not necessarily well equipped to go 1 1/8 miles. So I think Maxim Rate is a very strong horse. I think there's, like I said, last time out, you don't want to discount it because it wasn't, it wasn't her best effort. But I do think that there are ample reasons to suggest that if she's placed a little bit more forwardly, if she's placed more in that, 3, 4, 5 hole, where she's been placed in previous races, then you're going to see a better result. She was placed 7th last time. That's a lot tougher. You're getting through a lot of other traffic. You're trying to weave through a lot of other horses. That's not ideal. She gets placed in the 3, 4, 5 slot. That won't be an issue. Additionally, I don't think there's going to be breakneck pace in this race. So there's no reason why Maxim Rate, especially with the inside rail, should not be placed in that 3 or 4 spot coming out of that first turn. So it'll be interesting to see how that early run plays out and where she gets placed. But I think better placement will result in a much better finish for this particular horse. So let's talk a little bit about Dog Tag, a horse that she finished right behind at the Yellow Ribbon Handicap, and of course, both of them finished behind Princess Grace. And that was a race that I handicapped about a month or so ago. I really liked Princess Grace a lot in that race, and so it was interesting to see how well she performed. But Dog Tag obviously ran a very strong race there as well, posted a 99 by her speed number. Now, the problem, if you will, or the issue that you have with Dog Tag is Dog Tag appears to like finishing second. 3 seconds this year. That said, they've been 3 monster second places. They're really strong speed numbers and closing strong each time. So it's not as if the horse traditionally fades into second place. That happened once, but generally coming from behind. So, like I said, 3 huge seconds, but still seconds. And that's an issue. Sometimes you like to see horses that just know how to win. And it's a little concerning when you see a horse consistently finish second. And especially when that horse is the morning line favorite. I don't love that. from Dog Tag. I don't like the value there. Um, I just don't like the chance to win. I think Dog Tag's a very good horse, very good filly, but I just don't see her finishing on the board, or at least in the lead. So uh, she's also tends to be a deep closer. Now, why is that an issue? Well, it's an issue because I don't think, as I mentioned, the pace is going to be blistering. In all likelihood, Quiet Secretary and She's Our Charm are going to be the early speed. Neither of those horses will be mistaken for a quarter horse or a sprint horse. They have good early speed, but not spectacular early speed. So they shouldn't blister the field. Now, that means that everybody's going to have a little bit more in the tank. And so Dog Tag can't rely on everybody else coming back to her. She's going to have to go up and win this. Going up and winning is not something Dog Tag does very well. So, again, I just, at that value, don't love it. Now, let's move to a horse whose value I do like quite a bit, and that's Bodicita. Now, this is a horse that's going off at 6-1. And I don't know if I don't have Bodicita to win, just to preview that a little bit to give you a sneak peek, but I like the value of Bodicita at 6-1 a lot more than I like the value of Tapwater at 6-1, for instance. So out of those horses at 6-1, and there's three of them, with Going to Vegas being the third, I like Bodicita the most out of those. I'll be interested. I wouldn't be surprised if she gets bet down quite a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up getting down to, like, I don't know, 4-1, maybe even 7-2. I don't know. I could see her getting bet down quite a bit come post time. You know, compared to Tapwater, if you're just looking at horses with comparable odds, Bodicita is a horse that has consistently better performances against consistently better competition and shows off consistently better speed. She's run competitively with all the favorites in this field, finished ahead of the favorites at multiple times in her career, and is also a deep closer and will try to make up a lot of ground. Now, as I said, that could hurt her because I don't think there's going to be incredible pace. And so that's a little tougher to make up ground when everybody's a bit fresher and those horses sitting in the 3-4 slot have plenty left in their tank, and you're not seeing this, blistering pace where everybody starts falling back and you can start passing up those fields. Now, as I said, Tapwater is a horse I don't really love. Has a new jockey, a lot of thirds in non-graded stakes races. That doesn't fit as a profile of a horse I like to hit the board in a grade 2 race. And I just don't think Tapwater is the class or the upper end speed. So Tapwater is a horse that at 6-1, I'm staying away from. I try to find value in horses around those odds, but just don't see it with Tapwater. Now let's talk a little bit about Going to Vegas. This is an interesting horse. This is one of 3 Richard Baltas horses. And both Bodicita and Going to Vegas have new jockeys. Kent DeSormo is taking over on Bodicita, and you have Flavien Prat on Going to Vegas. Now, what's interesting about that is that Flavien Prat rode Bodicita for many races earlier in her career. Prat chose, presumably, you don't know, but presumably Prat had a choice of which horse he wanted to run and decided to run Going to Vegas. Now, again, as we've talked about before, jockeys are in this to win. And if if Flavien Prat thinks he's got a better chance to win on Going to Vegas, that's something you should probably pay attention to. That's it. Going to Vegas is a horse that pace will be everything here. And unlike the other two that I mentioned, Bodicita and Dog Tag, Going to Vegas is a horse that actually will want a slower pace. And if she can get a slow pace, then I think there's a chance. It's not a great chance, but I think there's a chance because if she gets worn out at a fast pace, because she tends to like to sit in that 3-4 slot. And so if she's right behind a really fast pace, she's going to just get gassed, and it's not going to happen. Now, the problem is she's going up against a pretty high class of horse who will be able to also, if again, the field's even for everyone. So if there's not pace for everyone in the field, then everybody's got a little bit left. That said, I think Going to Vegas, I trust Flavien Prat a great deal in terms of giving her the best possible ride. I don't necessarily love Like I said, I don't necessarily love her chances, but I like them more than Tapwater. But I like Bodacita the most out of those 6-1 odds. Um, and then there is um, Fast Jet Court, and Fast Jet Court is a horse that, like I said, I don't love this horse to win, but this is a horse that I could see creeping into the back end of exotics, your trifectas, your superfectas. Um, this is a horse that's coming in and running the first time from Brazil. Drayden Van Dyke won some big races last weekend. Certainly an accomplished jockey. Um, this horse down in Brazil has been stepping up in competition, which you like to see. Has been running, ran a grade one, ran a grade three. So has some capability and has run those graded stakes races down there. So there is something to like there. And now that said, the first time out, generally speaking, international horses take a race to adjust. And so we'll see how Fast Jet Court does here. But at 6-1, I wouldn't be surprised if that value goes up. American bettors tend to undervalue international horses. And so 6-1 is the starting point. I actually think this horse could go off at post time 8-1, 9-1, maybe even 10-1. And so at that value, I really like it at the back end. So how do I see this race playing out? Well, like I said, I don't see incredible pace. I like horses that can do the distance. And so therefore, I like Maxim Rate to win. I like Bodacita to place. I like Dog Tag to show. And I like Going to Vegas to come in fourth. I think if you want to flop those last two, I wouldn't have any quibble. You'll get a little bit more value if you go with Going to Vegas in that 3 slot on your trifectas. So I get it if you're trying to chase a little value there. But like I said, the way I see it breaking out is 1, 6, 3, 8. Maxim Rate, Bodacita, Dog Tag, and then Going to Vegas. So let's now move to the headline race of the day, the Grade 2 Del Mar Derby, which is a 1.125 for 3-year-olds on turf. And let's take a look at that field for the Del Mar Derby. And this is a crowded field. And rest assured, we are not going to even get close to going through each of these horses individually, but I will just name them off. I'm not even going to go through all the connections because I could be here all day. But in the number 1 hole, you have Hudson Ridge, who is the morning line favorite at 9-2. You'll see this is a very evenly divided race. A lot of horses between that 9-2 and 8-1 range. So Hudson Ridge coming in at that one post. Number 2, Barraza. Number 3, Hockey Dad. Number 4, None Above the Law. Number 5 is No Foolery Here. Number 6, Optimistic Valor. Number 7, Petruchio. Number 8, Cathkin Peak, Irish horse. Number 9, Zoffarel, another Irish horse. Number 10, Jimmy Blue Jeans, very interesting horse we're going to talk about. Number 11, Lincoln Hawk. Number 12, Crew Dragon. Number 13, Sword Zorro. And number 14, Flashiest. And so that is your field for the Grade 2 Del Mar Derby, 1.125 on turf for 3-year-olds. And so let's talk a little bit about some of the horses, a fraction of the horses that are in this 14-horse field. And listen, when you have a 14-horse field, you got to worry about the break. This is much like the Kentucky Derby. I worry about those horses on those inside post positions. If you're on the far outside, I don't mind it so much because you have the ability to go out. You're probably not going to get pinched. Especially considering some of the favorites are posted on the outside. You're not going to get pinched. You're going to use early speed to try to get out ahead and then kind of gradually come on in the side. I worry about those, 4 through 9 post positions. A lot of times you see horses get pinched and get bumped in the beginning. So it's just something to keep in mind in a really big field. It's almost much more like a Kentucky Derby field, to be honest. So it will be interesting to see how these horses break. But let's start with Hudson Ridge on the inside, the morning line favorite at 9-2. And this is a Bob Baffert horse jockeyed by Flavien Prat. And this is a horse, very strong workouts. Very strong workouts. This is a horse who I actually will say, I think distance will help this horse. I think at a 1.16 or a mile, I'd actually say this is a problem for this horse. I think the more distance this horse takes, the better. I even think a mile and a quarter would be a really good distance for Hudson Ridge. Good pedigree to suggest that's not going to be an issue. American Pharoah progeny, so he can do the distance because American Pharoah did, and so mile and eighth won't be an issue at all. I don't think for this horse. Like I said, strong workouts. Baffert is, think of Bob Baffert what you will. He's still winning 26% of his races in California, which is uh, leading all of the main uh, trainers out there in terms of percentages. And additionally, Flavian Pratt is going to place this horse perfectly. I never doubt that. And he's got the horse under him to do that. So I like Hudson Ridge quite a bit. Now let's move to a horse, No Foolery Here. And No Foolery Here is a Richard Baltas horse that's going off at 8-1, jockeyed by Giovanni Franco. Again, distance will not be an issue. And I like that for 3-year-olds who, sometimes are trying to stretch out for the first time, and distance is an issue for some horses. Now, this is a step up in class. But to be fair, if you look at most of this field, honestly, most of this field is stepping up in class. So sometimes I will critique a horse for that and go, well, stepping up in class, against, sometimes you see one horse that's stepping up in class in a 6-horse field, and you go, okay, this horse is going to be, really over his head. But honestly, in a 14-horse field with so many horses taking a step up in competition, I don't hate the fact that No Foolery Here is as well. I like the value here to hit the board. Some very close finishes last time out, made up a ton of ground late, finished third by a head. I mean, so it was really very, very close that last time out. So, finished third to a couple of other horses in this field. But like I said, very competitive horse. And I really like the value that you're going to get with No Foolery Here. So, like I said, lost to Flashiest and Crew Dragon by a head. And so close between first, second, and third that last time out. You see that Flashiest is at 6-1. No Crew Dragon, or Crew Dragon, I should say, is at 8-1. And so, No Foolery Here being an 8-1. I just really like those odds. And so, some mediocre workouts on the Del Mar turf leading up to this. So that's a little concerning. But, has had some nice 5-furlong workouts on that turf earlier in August. So again, good value there, I think, to hit the board, and that's what you're looking for, certainly in a 14-horse field. So another horse that I like the value of is Zaffarel. This is a horse that won the Grade 3 handicap via disqualification in his first U.S. start. Now, this is why I like this horse, and particularly why I like this horse even 6-1, which is not huge odds, but I like the odds there. You would expect to see significant improvement from race 1 to race 2 in the United States. You always typically see that. I mean, if you follow East Coast racing at all, you follow Chad Brown horses. Chad Brown, when he brings horses over from England, you typically see that first race, and then you see that second race. There's typically a, 5 to 9 point increase in the speed number between that first and second race, just getting more acclimated. So the fact that Zaffarel came in from overseas and ran a winning race, ultimately, I mean, granted via DQ, but it was still very, very close, ran a winning race and a strong buyer speed number in his first effort. Like I said, that's a big deal. Drayden, as I mentioned before, won some big races last week, Drayden Van Dyke. Now, the only issue here is I will say distance might be an issue. Stretching out to a mile and 8 might be too much. But again, from a morning line standpoint, 6-1, I don't hate it. And I wouldn't be surprised if the morning line odds either stay at 6-1 or maybe go up a little bit. So that's a horse. Again, I like the value there. If you're looking for a value play, I think that's particularly one to look at. So let's look at another horse that's on a bit of a heater, Jimmy Blue Jeans, coming out of that 10 slot. And Jimmy Blue Jeans is a horse that I think probably has the best value in the field at 12-1. This is a horse that is on a heater, 3 for 3 in the last 3 races. Not the greatest competition, but is doing it at the right distance. It's winning at a mile and an eighth, a mile and a 16th. So is consistently winning at pretty good distances to suggest this won't be an issue. Like I said, the competition has been middling. This is a step up, no doubt about it. But again, this is not an overwhelming field in terms of a ton of graded stakes experience. You have a couple horses, but not everybody. And again, at 12 to 1, I just like the value of Jimmy Blue Jeans. And so a lot to like there. And more importantly, improving workouts. So you're seeing this horse getting better and better and better. So those are things I like to see trends on for Jimmy Blue Jeans. Now let's go to a horse I really like a lot, and that's Sword Zorro. And that is not just because I dressed up as Zorro in second grade as my Halloween costume, but this is a horse that just keeps improving every time out. Better finishes, better speed numbers the last 4 times out. This was a horse that actually got DQ'd in that race with Zaffarel, the grade 3 La Jolla handicap. So it's a horse that just, kind of drifted and bumped and ultimately properly disqualified. But this is a horse that can win. Distance won't be an issue for Sword Zorro. I think as long as you eliminate some of those drifting and bumping issues in the home stretch, you're not going to have a problem. And at 5 to 1, I love the value for Sword Zorro. And most importantly, as I said in the beginning, I like the outside post position. I like breaking from far outside there because you're going to stay away from some of the craziness that's going to happen on those inside post positions in such a large field. Now let's take a look at the final horse in the post positions, Flashiest. This is a horse that, it's interesting. This is a horse that took a huge step up in competition, ran the Saratoga Derby Invitational, and got absolutely obliterated. Finished well behind everyone else. I think finished dead last actually in that field and got crushed. Coming back to the West Coast, this is a West Coast horse, went east for this one race, got killed, is coming back. Important to point out, this horse was 3 for 4 in terms of wins on the West Coast with a second place. So this horse never finished worse than second when racing out on the West Coast. Went to Saratoga, got beat really badly. Distance here might be an issue. The other issue you have with Flashiest, and maybe one of the reasons I'm going to fade Flashiest here, and it's not because I don't think it's a good horse. I think he's a good horse. I think the field size does not set up well for Flashiest. This is a horse that actually likes to come from behind and likes to be a deep closer. I think there is going to be decent speed in this race, so that part of it sets up well. The problem is this is a horse that's going to have to weave through a ton of other horses to get to the lead and to get to the win. And a lot can go wrong when you're trying to get through 8, 9, 10, 11 horses. You can just get sealed off. You can get cut off. You can get bumped. You can get pushed way outside. Any number of things can happen. I just don't love that positioning for Flashiest. And so it'll be interesting. Will Abel Cedillo, who's a very good jockey out at Del Mar, will Abel push Flashiest up to like the 5-6 spot, and so you don't have to move around quite as much. Not a lot in the profile to suggest that that's what they'll do. So it'll be interesting to see how Flashiest gets placed early on. But this is a horse I just don't love weaving your way through all that traffic. I was just recently watching the Kentucky Derby of when Mind That Bird came from all the way in the back and wove through that huge field to win. Not everybody is Calvin Burrell and can just hang on the rail and get that perfect trip right through the rail. I mean, that's a tough thing to do. And Calvin was one of a kind at doing it. Abel is a very good jockey, but again, you weave your way through that many horses, you're going to get stuck at some point, and that's a concern for Flashiest that I have. So how do I see the Del Mar Derby playing out? Well, I have it. 13, 5, 1, 10. That's right. I have Sword of Zorro to win. I have no Foolery here to place. I think that's where you're going to find some value. I like Hudson Ridge to come in third. And then finally, Jimmy Blue Jeans. Even though it's taking a step up in competition, still like to finish well and finish strong. I think Jimmy Blue Jeans finishes fourth. So that's how I see the Del Mar Derby playing out. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the preview of the races, and check out my blog for the picks for all of the races on Saturday's card at Del Mar. And of course, you can get my picks and previews for Saturday's races at Saratoga as well. And the only place to get them is on amalfimedia.com. Finally, just a final reminder to subscribe to Amalfi Media on YouTube. Be on the lookout for the Win Place Show podcast coming to the platform of your choice in the next week or two. Follow me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace and check out all of the great content we have on AmalfiMedia.com. We're a lot more than just horse racing, folks. We got history, we got politics, we got cooking, we got the whole 9 yards. So check it out. And we got all the horse racing coverage you need to get you through the Breeders' Cup and beyond. Until next time, I'm Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.